couple of things. I've spent a little more time over the last couple of days watching more Jaden Ivey. I'm really diving into literally every one of his offensive possessions because
synergy.
Yes. I will not unveil my synergy source, but thank you to that person. And I understand why so many people out there are enamored with Jaden Ivey's potential.
Yeah.
The explosiveness in transition, 6'4",
athleticism,
super athletic, right?
Elite athleticism. Yes. Explosive.
Absolutely. I guess I'm not to the point. I still have more to do. I mean, we're 17 days before. I'm not going to make any bold proclamations at this point.
Good.
But I'm not as high on him as others. And
that's fine.
Look, maybe I'm swayed going forward. I just look at him as someone who, it's not even worried about the fit with Fox per se, because I think Jaden Ivey is comfortable playing off ball. My biggest thing watching some of his stuff at Purdue was I think he should have had the ball more. I think he's most effective when he's got the ball in his hands. And this is what's so challenging when it comes to the draft. If Monty McNair thinks that this guy's got the highest ceiling and he could be a star, I think you have to take him. That's where I'm at. If Monty McNair, who's had some decent success with first-round picks the last couple of years with Halliburton and Mitchell, if he views him as like, no, this guy has a chance to be the best player in the draft, I think you have to do it. You can't be in a position where you're like, well, let's go for just fit because we're just trying to get in the playoffs. No, if Jaden Ivey goes somewhere else, if he goes to Detroit and he turns into an all-star and you got Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey taking over the league, you're going to be kicking yourself.
All
for
of
years.
these things can happen at a player in so many different spots, right? You think about it with the Kings in the position that they're in with that fourth pick, and then that mistake being happening, and it's like, oh well, shit, like this always happens, right? A lot of people would feel very, very bad for the Kings, but with this whole situation too, I understand the whole win now scenario. I think sometimes when I say this, people get mad, but I don't think it's realistic that the Kings will make the playoffs next season. And I don't mean that so confidently, so early. I just think you really have to be smart about looking at the West and looking where the Kings are right now with tweaks. Like, we can put out there all the magical tweaks that we want to happen, but doesn't mean that those are going to happen, right? Doesn't mean that Mike Brown in year one can just make this team that's had a 16-year playoff drought into a playoff team. And he could do the opposite of what I'm saying as well. But my point is, I'm just trying to be realistic from a basketball standpoint. When I look at someone like Jaden Ivey and what he can do on the floor, it's really betting on his potential. Yeah. And I think
I'm with you on that. I don't think it's necessarily something next year he's going to be like, oh, he's taking over.
When I say that line though, Deuce, a lot of people come back at me and go, well, that's what you're doing with every guy. You're betting on potential. But no, I'm just looking at this specific individual and his game and the potential he would have with the fit with the Sacramento Kings, and what people think he can be, right? And so if you do believe that he can be that star player, whatever, you do that. But from what you and I have both watched with, full games and then some obviously extra synergy highlights and all of that stuff, it's fun watching the great things he can do, but the things that he lacks, for example, his defense, his defensive IQ, that's shit that scares me. When your hands are in your pockets and you don't even have pockets in your basketball shorts, but that's where they are when you're playing defense, that to me screams effort. It screams IQ. And I'm just questioning this guy with a 7-foot wingspan, why you wouldn't utilize that part of your body.
So then my pushback on that immediately, because I've seen the same thing you have, and I haven't loved what I've seen defensively at all. Because you just said he's got physical tools. You get him with an NBA coaching staff, someone like Mike Brown going up against Davion every day.
Teaching him.
You can maybe get that out of him.
Sure.
That's that's wishful thinking, but I'm just saying.
It's not. No,
and that's what I think these teams look at. His shooting, I think, the one encouraging aspect is that 3-point percentage went up from his freshman year at Purdue, 25% to 35%. So you're seeing the improvement there. I just think there are other things about his game that I'm like, I don't know. I don't trust his shot. I don't always trust his decision making. I think when he gets pressured, when the double team comes and a pick and roll, he struggled with that. it doesn't mean he can't be better at those things. I think Sacramento's just in a really tough spot because if this guy turns out to be like Donovan Mitchell,
absolutely,
he turns out to be an absolute stud, and you passed him for a guy that you think would fit better, that's going to kill you.
I want to rewind back to really quick to how you said, like, coaches can help because they absolutely can. But I think basketball IQ is a huge flaw when people lack basketball IQ. It's a huge flaw to have. And the reason why I say this, because I look at someone like Marvin Bagley. Yes, just so many injuries, his health, a huge problem. We look at his athleticism and that double jump that he had, the double hop where he could stay in the air and all of these things. And the defense that was not taught as an individual defender at Duke, right? Like he didn't understand. They shoved him in his zone, whatever. With Jaden Ivey, I go, well, you're not going to get that from him in the first year. If you're looking to win now, you're literally like that whole defensive mindset doesn't just change like that. It could take an entire year.
In all fairness,
what?
There aren't many rookies who come to the league ready to play defense.
And that's absolutely it right there too. And that's why, yes, keep poking the flaws at, my debate. No, I like it because it is very true as well. I'm just telling you what I see and what I like and don't like.
I think he definitely has some issues. You go, again, it goes to what you said. It's the potential. And if you do see that, hey, he can turn into a legit shooter, he puts in the work. Like, that's the other thing that you've talked about before. Is like, we're not in the interviews with these guys. We're not watching film with these guys.
Right.
Hell, the stuff we're watching on Jaden Ivey from earlier this year in December, January, February. Well, breaking news. We're in June now. And he has had a chance to work on this game with NBA trainers.
Absolutely.
They're sitting down. Do you know what they should be doing if you're a college prospect? You're going, all right, I'm watching my stuff. How do I get better at these things? How do I handle double teams better? What can I do off ball? The other thing I would say with Jaden is like maybe he looks better with NBA spacing too, right? And he played with a big who could pass the ball at Purdue. We saw that.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
Williams.
Yeah, legit. Well, Sabonis obviously is one of the best passing bigs in the game. I think the other problem with Sacramento, just in the short-term fit, if it was Jaden Ivey, is just like the spacing. Fox hasn't shown consistently as an outside shooter.
Yeah.
Sabonis is not. Then you add him. It's like there isn't a ton of spacing at all.
I want to get to this question from one of our chatters, NBA Rigged. Do you think we have the development coach to assist? From our experience, development coaching is lacking for our organization. Do you think so? Absolutely. To the lack of developing going on, I think there's been some great individual developmental coaches that maybe didn't get to do everything that they needed to do. And I think now going forward from what we've seen with Jordy Fernandez, that's now going to be on the coaching staff, who believes in the grind of the G League and the development and understands how important that part of the game is. And then someone like Doug Christie, who understands how important it is to teach the game. And then Mike Brown, who you've seen grown as a coach over the years. I think that's something that can be answered. Will it be perfected in the first year? You got to give it time, right? But I do believe that you have the right players now that are going to buy in to what this coaching staff is saying and maybe even do a better job at developing some of these younger guys.
The other thing too, we were talking about Jeremy Wu saying Keegan Murray in his mock draft. I like Keegan Murray. I really do. Good size. He could score, plays defense, smart player. I don't think he's got that nasty in him that I kind of want out of a player. But I think there's this weird narrative happening with Keegan Murray where it's like, yeah, that's the safe pick. It's just a safe thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, one, this is the NBA draft lottery. I mean, I don't know. It's I to call something safe unless it's like you're drafting LeBron James #1 where everyone's like, no, this guy's going to be a stud.
That's fair.
I don't know if anything's really safe, but I think some people act like, oh, Keegan's just a guy. And maybe he is, but he could score in college and he's gotten better. This guy wasn't some like highly recruited guy out of high school where he's getting all these D1 offers. No, he was coming off the bench his freshman year. This year he came into his own. I dig his basketball IQ is high. He does some nice things defensively. He has some good size. Do you draft him for? I'd probably try to trade down personally. But I like Keegan Murray.
And think about how we always talk about how, well, if you're a team like Sacramento in this market, you have to build through the draft, like grow through the draft. And you call him safe. Okay, let's say for some reason they either traded up or Chet Holmgren was all of a sudden just there. Whatever. Let's just play that. And he doesn't turn out to what he needs to be. So you went with the unsafe pick? You went with something that you thought was going to be special and turn out to be something special in the NBA. So at the same time, what direction are you trying to go? And I think with Monty McNair and this crew, it's like, I understand you're kind of in this win now situation, but you can win now with a good basketball team, not just one good individual. With a good basketball team, you can do some special things on the floor. Please.
Yeah. I mean, you need talent. You got to take a swing. And if it's Jaden Ivey, okay. If that's what you believe.
I'm taken back by your being okay with the Jaden Ivey thing. Is it more just because it's like the unknown?
A couple of things.
What?
This isn't me. This is me one, these NBA front office, hopefully they're watching more than me. Hopefully, they're doing more homework than me.
Amen.
I'm not going to say I fully trust, hey, in Monty we trust. But Monty's had some success in the draft. Yeah. I think he's a smart guy. I think he does his homework. I think he has a good feel for this. Okay. I don't think this is a situation like, hey, the Kings are passing up on Luka if they don't draft Jaden Ivey. That's not what I think at all. I think he's got upside for sure. The fit's not great, but I think what I get worried about is this all-out pursuit of just getting in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And Monty has pushed back on that notion. Like before, he's talking about now it's about sustained success. That's what it should be. I was listening to Simmons and Russillo today. They talked about the Kings at the end of their podcast, and Russillo was talking about how he's had conversations with NBA people going, yeah, I have no idea what the Kings are going to do. And oh man, do they really go Ivy? But if they don't get him and he goes somewhere else and turns out to be an absolute star, it's just we're having the same conversations again. 17 days away. This is what makes it fun.